So here's something that I wanted to do. I wanted to talk about ContraPoints, who is another left-wing YouTuber who has a huge channel. And I wanted to talk about the really unique aspect, and multiple aspects actually, of ContraPoints' channel, and why I think it's in a way very revolutionary for the left. But basically, on YouTube, for the left, there's like two different sort of spheres of left wing media. There's one sphere is news media that's left wing, that being your, TYT, Kyle Klinsky, Sam Cedar, David Pakman, etc., etc. And then you have, I don't know what the right title for this faction of the left is. But you've got people like, ContraPoints, H-Bomb, and Sean, and a bunch of other people in that sphere, Three Arrows. So I don't know what to title that sphere, but there are these two different spheres of the left on YouTube. Some of them differ. Like, most of the news guys are social democrats, but some of those people in the other sphere are more left-leaning, definitely more than the news left, but some of them lean pretty far left. So what I want to talk about ContraPoints is, basically, she has a channel now that's at 340,000 subscribers, which is huge. I remember back in, I believe it was 2017 or 2016. Not 2016. I think it was 2017, but I can't recall exactly. Her channel was about like 30 or 40,000 subscribers, and it was growing. But her channel has absolutely just gone mad. It's gone crazy in terms of numbers. Her Patreon, I think, has like over 6,000 patrons, which is a crap ton of patrons. And so her channel has been massively successful. Now, the reason why I wanted to talk about this is because she presents something, and this is why she's so respected and why her channel is one of the few times in American society where, merit actually ends up panning out. But she's unique and revolutionary because there has never been, at least not that I know of, maybe you guys see someone different, but I don't think so. There has never been someone who has been really like a really good leader for the trans community, and someone who represents the trans community very well. In fact, like, the first person that that sparked the massive controversy modern-wise is Caitlyn Jenner. Caitlyn Jenner sucks. Okay, she's a Republican. She voted for Donald Trump. She called poor people lazy, and she went on the Ellen show and talked about how she's a traditionalist and how originally she wasn't on the equality of marriage team. She's terrible. I mean, she's just a bad person. And apparently she also committed manslaughter too. But there has never been like a really solid representation of trans people on YouTube, or really anywhere, to be honest with you. And so she's now, I think I just saw like an article on the New York Magazine where there was one that was just strictly dedicated to talking about ContraPoints, because what she does is so unique. And so this is not meant to disparage other people, but like Riley J. Dennis, I don't feel like is a good representation, or a representative, I should say, for the trans community. I think that some of the things that she says makes the trans community actually not look very good. One of the things that I think doesn't work well is when you say something like it is, I believe she said that it was transphobic not to want to basically have intercourse with trans people, and so that didn't sit well with people, because I don't really agree with that. But ContraPoints is someone, and the guy named Colin Moriarty, he's a guy who's a libertarian. Now, he's not very smart. He tried to call out Bernie Sanders for his healthcare plan, costing $32 trillion, but didn't mention that we'd save $2 trillion over 10 years because of how much our system already costs. So that kind of tells you who this guy is. But he's at least a respectable person for the most part, to my knowledge. And what he basically said is that he doesn't really agree with what Contra says, which I don't understand, because it's sort of like what she says is pretty concrete. But he said that the argumentation she was providing and what she was saying really essentially floored him. And so it's starting to revolutionize the arguments and just the way that people look at the trans community. And so it's a simple supply and demand equation going on here. There was a lack of supply of people who are trans who really represent the trans community well and are able to make these prolific arguments that just totally debunk people and their nonsense. And there's high demand for that because there was no one doing it. There just wasn't. And so the reason why her channel has been just going through the roof, and I'm sure that it will continue to go through the roof, is because she filled a gap that was super necessary and just wasn't that. There was just a gap. I mean, there was nobody to fill that hole. And so that's why she's so unique. And also, her argumentation and the arguments she makes are almost irrefutable. B, she's also very, very knowledgeable on topics, especially philosophy, and we'll get into that in a second here. But C, the actual video quality is above pretty much anyone else in terms of YouTube politics. Like, if you were to take it strictly from a video production and video quality metric, I don't think there's any other YouTube political channel that's on that level. I just don't see it. I mean, you're basically watching a politically infused mini movie. That's basically what you're watching, and that's high quality. That takes time to do, and people like high quality things. And so it's this really big. You fill this gap, and then you also have high quality video production, really good argumentation. And so you start to really make these arguments that start to stump people. And what I'm going to show you guys here is a clip from one of her videos. It was on Jordan Peterson. Now, if I'm not mistaken, so Jordan Peterson sent out a tweet on the same day that was uploaded afterwards, and he just straight up said no comment on Twitter. That was the tweet, and there was no context whatsoever. On the same day that video was posted, is there any way that wasn't in response to her video? I don't see how that's possible, but check this out.
Jumbled and nonsensical than it initially appears. Peterson uses the term postmodern neo-Marxism to include not only postmodern intellectuals and Marxist intellectuals, but also liberal politicians, academic administrators, and corporate HR departments that care about diversity, and so-called identity politics activists, including feminists, LGBT, and civil rights activists. Basically, it's the entirety of the modern left. Now, I've already mentioned how Marxism and postmodernism are fundamentally at odds, since Marxism is a big story about a struggle between two clear and distinct groups, and postmodernism is skepticism about big stories like this, and about the stability of binaries like bourgeoisie and proletariat. But that's not the only tension in Peterson's clusterfuck idea of postmodern neo-Marxism. Anyone with any experience in leftist circles knows that Marxists and identity politics activists are constantly at each other's throats, because the Marxists accuse the activists of being bourgeois dogs who want more female CEOs of color and more disabled transgender drone pilots, while the activists accuse the Marxists of being a boys' club of brocialists, no more woke on gender and race issues than the average Jordan Peterson fan. Most often these accusations are correct, because everyone is problematic and I disown them all. And then there's also the conflict between the identity politics activists and the postmodernists. Why does everyone think that identity politics is postmodern?
Oh man, that's a devastating takedown. There's no other possible way to characterize what you just saw. And that's not even the full clip, by the way. I mean, she goes on to just totally deconstruct Jordan Peterson's nonsense. And I believe that's why he responded on Twitter with that tweet of no comment. It's because the guy lumps everything in with postmodernism when Marxism isn't even postmodernist. They're at odds with each other. So how can you group in Marxism with postmodernism? It doesn't make any sense. And you should go watch that video on Jordan Peterson she did. I think this clip is somewhere around like the 20-minute mark. And she goes through and starts to explain all the intricacies of how he basically groups corporate HR departments with SJWs and with actual Marxists when they're always at odds with each other. Obviously, nowhere near even a majority of SJWs. I'm going to use quotations here because the term is a bit overused at this point, and it's really murky waters as to what even constitutes an SJW at this point. But not even close to a majority of them are actual Marxists. Most SJWs are capitalist. I mean, that's just the way it is. They're not Marxist. And to lump in corporate HR departments, which is the epitome of capitalism, with what you are claiming is postmodern neo-Marxism doesn't actually make any sense. And so I wouldn't be able to make that argument because I don't know shit about postmodernism or modernism. I don't know about that. That's just not like, I don't think there's anyone on political YouTube who would be able to make those arguments just because they simply don't know about it. I mean, the term postmodernism that has been used by Jordan Peterson at this point, I already knew is just a complete buzzword, and that's what it is. It doesn't mean anything because you just say postmodernism, and then it's this buzzword that literally has no meaning, by the way. I want to make sure it's just a total BS term that doesn't mean anything when it comes from him. So that's what I mean, is that you just saw a clip of Jordan Peterson's entire worldview and his entire shtick, which is what has made him into this, I want to say, philosophical celebrity. By the way, I don't understand what the infatuation with Jordan Peterson is because he doesn't say anything of any actual like craziness or substance of any sort. He actually says a lot of dumb stuff. Like he thought that the old sculpture of like snakes fucking each other was a representation of double helix, which was not even close. What? What are you talking about, man? So anyways, the point I'm trying to get at here is ContraPoints has revolutionized not only the left, but also that corner of society of just simply representation of trans people. I mean, there's no better representative of trans people, and I don't think there ever will be, than ContraPoints, because she is someone who is really well educated, obviously, as you guys just saw in that clip, but she's someone who makes really good arguments, and often they can't be refuted, as we saw with Jordan Peterson. He couldn't refute them. He just said no comment. That was it. That was all he said. He straight up just said no comment. That was his response. That was his response. And so she makes it so that she's shifting the Overton window. Before, people would not really take them seriously. Now you have to take them seriously because you actually have to start thinking about the arguments that are being made. And again, I really recommend you go check out that Jordan Peterson video she did. She literally debunks basically his entire worldview in a couple minutes. It's amazing. I couldn't believe it. So that's something interesting that I wanted to talk about, which is, ContraPoints' channel is really, really good.